Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you again for joining my virtual town hall for the Potomac District here in Prince William County. I am your host for this afternoon, your supervisor, Andrea Bailey. It's a pleasure to be with you this afternoon. Well, we just finished the budget season, and it was a great opportunity for us to serve you, the community, at a greater level. It took process, it took preparation, and it took the coordination with our county to make sure that we had a substantial, wholesome, fair, protective budget. And so we are doing very well in the county. We are still focusing on protecting our communities. And so today, it gives me great honor and a pleasure to bring before you our Director of Social Services, Ms. Courtney Tierney. Courtney, thank you for joining us this afternoon.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
I know it's been a whirlwind process in the last 2.5 months. We're just going to say 2.5 months. You and your department have done an awesome job in protecting us and making sure that we have a higher level of service during COVID-19. And so we are very thankful and grateful for your wonderful expertise. But talk to us about where we are in terms of COVID-19 and the level of services that you've had to provide.
It has been quite a challenging time, and thank you so much for your support. The whole board has been very supportive for us, but right now during COVID, you all stepped up significantly. One of the biggest things that we have done during COVID is enhance our services to persons experiencing homelessness. The board stepped in and approved our budget that was of some local funding through the Affordable Housing Proffer, as well as some state and federal funding. And we have been able to enlarge the number of beds that we are able to provide, whether they are COVID positive or COVID exposed, persons at great risk because of underlying conditions, all of them experiencing homelessness, whether they are families, with
So we're having a few technical difficulties, and Courtney will be right back with us. Our technician is assisting us at this time. But I wanted to say that Courtney's department, the Department of Social Services, all offer us an array of services from homelessness to Medicare and Medicaid services to mental health services. It is a robust department that assists us in every way here in our county. Her department has had to step up in 100% in uncertain and unexpected times to assure that the constituents of Prince William County's needs are addressed immediately. She also works with the Human Services Alliance, which is an organization that provides an array of services in all different types of genres. But Courtney's department, she's the department that orchestrates and organizes the services and where those services are supposed to be delivered. I think we have a caller online. I see a hand that was raised. Will, are you there?
Yes, I am, Supervisor. So, Supervisor, someone actually wanted to ask a question at the beginning. Mr. Fred Hamilton of Dumfries, Virginia. He said, how did it go in your first budget process? How have you adjusted to the process?
Thank you, Will. And Mr. Hammond, thank you so much for that question. I have to say that the budget process was very, very smooth. It enabled us to really learn budgeting at a higher level from a governing standpoint and understand the collaboration with different departments and the needs in those different departments, as well as the constituents' needs. And so it was a collaboration of constituent needs, departmental needs, as well as the actual budgeting process from a governing standpoint. There were no glitches in that my colleagues and I were determined to work together There were differences. However, there was collaboration. And so I'm very pleased to say that we came together with a very robust, a very staunch and strong budget that will serve and sustain and stabilize our county going forward for 2021. I see we have Courtney back now. She's joined us again. And I thank you for our technician in the background assisting us. Courtney, welcome back.
Thank you. I didn't know I was gone.
That's okay. You were hanging in there. I could feel that you were hanging in there. So I want to.
Now the dog's here.
Well, good. Again, another level of protection. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I want to talk to you about your department. Could you enlighten us, please, about the different levels and the different organizations that your group has to serve to? What are those different levels so that our viewers will understand?
Thank you. What we do at the Department of Social Services, we transform lives, and we do this through safety and support and self-sufficiency. We do it through child protective services, adult protective services, foster care and adoption, homeless services, juvenile services such as the Juvenile Detention Center, pretrial supervision, our Molinary Shelter for Youth, and of course, public benefits. Right now, all of these areas are just being impacted through COVID-19, and we are doing our best to provide these essential services for this time.
So tell me, you were speaking of the homeless residents that we have here in the county. Could you describe to me what has been your biggest challenge through COVID-19?
I think the biggest challenge has been our system of, we have 3 shelters in the Prince William area, and they serve primarily families. And we have an overnight shelter that serves adults. And for the most part, that has for years served well. But when the governor did the shelter in place order, where do you go to shelter in place if you don't have a shelter? And that has been a big challenge for us. And that's why we expanded services like we have done, so that persons who may not be healthy but don't need hospitalization can have a place. But also we combine the drop-in center and the overnight shelter at the Dale City Rec Center. And so that's now open 24/7 for healthy adults who are homeless.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. And I have to commend you, the process in which you conduct that, protecting our homeless residents. It was in a very private yet strategic way, in respect of those citizens. And I mean, you did an impeccable job in making sure that not only were they protected, but their rights were protected as well. So talk to me, if you will, one of the passions that I have, of course, you and I have talked about this quite a bit, is mental health. Enlighten us in terms of the needs there, and what do you see in terms of the needs during COVID-19?
Well, certainly this is a time where anxiety and depression and those types of mental health conditions are going to be exacerbated. We are concerned about our children because our Child Protective Services reports are low. They're low because school's not in session. We expect that the mental health conditions of some families work with are going to be challenged during this time of sheltering. And in some cases, that might not be a positive situation for children or for vulnerable adults. And so we really do want people to report when they think there may be some abuse or neglect. We work very closely with our sister agency, Community Services, who has a special program for persons that are experiencing homelessness who have serious mental illness. And we are working right with them together in the homeless services that I provided, that I mentioned earlier. We also are working to make sure that children who need special education, and it's the type of special education that can't be provided in the schools, it has to be provided at home. And in some cases, that is a behavioral health issue. And we are working closely with the schools to see that they are served well.
Yeah, I know that is a very large need, and it's it's a continual need. It's not just during the COVID season. It's a continual need. And so talk to me, and if you could share with our audience, how are the community partners? What part do they play with you in providing those services? And that's a discussion that we have continual as well. Yeah,
we are working with the community partners all the time. Now, I will name some, but I want to give the caveat that it is possible I leave somebody out, which I hate to do, but we were working very closely with Streetlight Community Outreach Ministries, because they operate the overnight shelter for us. And so right now at Dale City, we are supporting their efforts in operating that. We also are working very closely with ACTS, who are providing the food at the hoteling system that we have. We are working with GMU and the MAP clinic, the nurses that they have. We have the Cooperative Council of Ministries. I don't know what we would do without them, and the network of churches, a number of whom are in your district. They are providing meals every day to the Hilda Bard shelter and to the shelter that we are operating at the Dale City Rec Center. So it's truly a partnership. This is none of the things that I've mentioned are something that the Department of Social Services does alone. It truly does take a community to get things done and to help those who are most vulnerable.
Yeah, it takes a village, doesn't it?
It certainly does.
Yeah. Well, I know one of the things during the budget season, we just had a budget question earlier. One of the things that was approved and we are focusing on was the additional funding for community partners, the additional percentage, as well as looking for the opportunity for us to sit down as a collective body with your department to look at, are there other opportunities for new community partners? Because it is such a important role that we all play in supporting you and providing those services. What's the hardest thing about your job? Or what's the opportunity about your job you would like to enlighten? How about that?
Well, a few minutes ago,
how can we help you?
Yeah. How can you help us? How can the community help us?
Yes.
I think that learning and understanding what we do is really critical. Reporting when someone feels that there might be some abuse or neglect. You know, when people watch television like Law and Order and they see social services coming in and snatching a child and all of that's not how it works. And we want to make sure that persons report when they are concerned about a child or a vulnerable adult, so that we can support them and their family in hopes to get things on a right track for them and their family. The other thing is to volunteer with the local community partners. It's a big help. Join with the Cooperative Council of Ministries to provide food. The Community Feeding Task Force is another entity that has been developed during COVID that is just doing remarkable work in providing meals to the community. And donations are always helpful. In the Prince William area, Disaster Fund is another way that can really help our local community.
Yes. You make an excellent point. One of the things that when you talk about educating the community, they always want to help, but they just don't know how to help. And so it's real important that we do educate them and we help them understand that you know, the funding, the volunteerism, all of it just doesn't come from the county. We want to partner with them within the community to make sure that everybody's taken care of. And so, and when we talk about everybody, I know we've talked about the children and we've talked about adults. I want to focus right now on the senior citizens. And I want to focus on the senior citizens because I have a very active and robust population in my district that they vote, they engage, they volunteer. What are we doing for that population, that demographic?
Well, I'm glad you asked. Before I was director of the Department of Social Services, I was director of the Prince William Area Agency on Aging. So that population is also near and dear to my heart.
Yes.
I think that first, volunteering. Secondly, keeping an eye on each other. Adult Protective Services, we are seeing an increase in reports right now during COVID-19. And we want to make sure that people are safe and that they're getting the services and the food and the medications that they need. So keeping an eye out for each other. I realize that the senior centers right now are closed that are operated by the Agency on Aging, but their Meals on Wheels program is very active. And that is a critical need in the community right now. The adult daycare is closed. So I think if persons know about a neighbor that may be helping some family member that has dementia, for example, that can be very difficult. And normally they might be able to go to the adult daycare, but right now they can't during COVID.
Yes.
And so caregiver stress is it's a real thing, and it's a real issue.
Yes, yes, it is. I'm a caregiver, and it is can be very stressful because you want to make sure that you're doing absolutely the best for your loved one. You want to make sure. I know that one of our community partners is Project Menda House.
Yes.
And can you expound a little bit about Project Menda House? Because I know that not only do they provide carpentry and building and renovation from their organization, but now during COVID, they're very anxious and willing to serve the senior citizen population. So expound on that a little bit for us, please.
Yes, it's important that people be able to age in place and age in an appropriate place. And sometimes a home is not the most appropriate place because it may not be the safest place. And I think Project Menda House does an outstanding job of coming in to help someone be able to make that home as safe as possible.
Yes.
And therefore they can stay in their home and stay in the community. And that's very, very helpful.
Yes. So tell me, what do you see in the future once the COVID-19 pandemic era is over? And we will get through this together. Once that is over, what would you like to see in terms of productivity enhancements within your department to make it even better and stronger?
One thing we are learning is that telework is possible, working from home is possible, technology is helpful. The visits that we do with children in foster care and the visits that we do right now in pretrial supervision, these are kids that are court ordered, but they are at home. However, we have to lay eyes on them every other day and talk to them, make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do. Being able to do that virtually, which is what we can do right now, has been wonderful. And the youth that we say, they love it too. And it has really improved the communication between the social worker or the pretrial supervisor and the youth. And I hope we will be able to continue to do that in that manner. That's not to say that meeting face-to-face isn't important. Of course it's important. But the youth seem to really like to be able to communicate virtually. And that is something that, because the state has waived some of the mandates and allowed us to do that, we're hoping that that allowance will continue.
So the last question that I'd like to propose to you is this, and from an educational standpoint. there are two different organizations within the county, Department of Social Services and the CSB.
Mm-hmm.
So explain that to the audience. I was volunteering with both before I became a supervisor, but explain that to your audience so they can understand those two different organizations or those two different entities.
Yes, and I'm going to start with human services because that term gets put in there too. So human services is the broad term. And under human services are 7 different agencies, of which community services and social services are 2 of those agencies. Mm-hmm. Community services specifically works with individuals who have substance misuse disorder and or behavioral health issues, in intellectual or developmental disabilities. In social services, because we do public benefits, we help the persons that community services is serving to obtain their Medicaid so that they can get some of the services that they need. We help them get their SNAP benefits if they have a need for food. So we support each other. We also mm-hmm. do the investigations if there is abuse or neglect. And mm-hmm. we also are helping persons that are homeless. So we don't do the case management, the one-on-one per se, that community services does, but we do care coordination and coordinate mm-hmm. the support that they need in order to get their care. Does that help?
Yes, it absolutely does. It absolutely does. And, and the reason why I asked the question is because it just gives our community a better understanding when you talk about funding, when you talk about services, and when you talk about collaboration. So I'm very thankful that you've joined us today. You've been here in this county, serving in this county for quite a minute, just a minute, and you know the county inside out, and you're always very open in your communication and always very open in your service, you and your department, to make sure that Prince William County is protected. And I know that first coming on board, you were one of the first that I sat down and talked about, because I knew budget season was coming about. Didn't know that COVID-19 was coming about, but the budget season was coming about, and we had to make adjustments and provisions. And so I'm very grateful for you and your department in that regard. Anything else that you'd like to add to? I know that you've provided some information for us, but is there anything else that you'd like to say before we end?
Yes, I would like to thank you, and I'd like to thank your staff. Will and Karen, they're always terrific to work with. And also I'd like to thank you for the appointment of Lori Wilson to our DSS Advisory Board, as well as the chairman of the DSS Advisory Board is Hilda Barg, and she also lives in the Potomac District. So you are well represented. And the numbers on the screen are those that persons should call when they need help: child protection, adult protection, all the homeless. There's a coordinated entry system, and then regarding benefits. I also put the number for the Area Agency on Aging in case someone is older and is interested in Meals on Wheels. That number is there as well.
Well, as usual, Courtney, you hit the nail on the head as usual, and we know that it does take a village. We know that it does take the community to lock arms to protect our community. We've done an exceptional job in doing so because of your department's leadership and, of course, the county exec's leadership. And all of you have just embraced the new board and bringing us in, helping us to understand what's needed when we make those very important and dire decisions. And so I'm very thankful for that. So thank you for joining me today. We're going to close out in a minute. I want to wrap up by providing information. Will, are we set? Are we good?
Yes, we're good, Supervisor. We're looking real good.
Okay. Well, if we don't have any other calls on the line, I want to just wrap up by saying we did have a very good process during the budget season. And we finished the budget season by having a rate on the real estate tax unchanged, stable, the same of 1.125%. And so that's very important for the community to know. It was a collaboration, and it was a very focused decision to make sure that citizens are protected in terms of the real estate tax, and there was no additional cost for them. We are very much in tune to services within the county, and so we did increase the budget for the Department of Social Services by up to $150,000. And Courtney, it was our pleasure to do so and to support our community partners. So it's very, very important that the community understands that we took that amount from $92,000 to $150,000 to make sure that our provision during COVID-19 especially was solid and substantial to make sure that we could serve at a higher level. Want to give you some updates in terms of what's to come. For the board meetings, this coming week, the board meeting will be May 12th. Of course, this evening's board meeting is canceled. It was canceled from the last budget meeting that we had. But May 12th is our next meeting at 2 o'clock. It'll be a regular meeting, and there will be there will not be a work session. There will be a work session during that time at 2 o'clock on May the 12th. And then May 19th, it will be a regular meeting at 2 o'clock. And then the 7:30 work session has been canceled for that meeting. So May 12th, 2 o'clock, May 19th, 2 o'clock. Want to make sure that the citizens know that. And I wanted to say, happy Cinco de Mayo. And Courtney, do you have something you want to share with us in terms of that? I think you do. Come on, Courtney. There you go.
All right.
There you go. Happy Cinco de Mayo. And thank you for, yes, thank you for being in the spirit of celebrating with mi amigas and mi amigos on the call. We really appreciate it. It is Happy Teachers Appreciation Week. We appreciate our teachers and our administrators, our counselors, all that you do for our children. And then May is Business Appreciation Month. So for our businesses, we know that this has been a hard time for you, but you are constantly on our minds and from the county perspective, and we're trying to come up with creative and supportive ways in supporting you and your businesses. So be patient with us. The governor has given us directions, and this weekend will be the time when we will be opening in phase 1. And so just hang in there with us. Phase 2 is coming, but we understand and we respect that this has been a hard time for you as well. And then lastly, I urge you to subscribe to the Bailey Bugle. We'll just put something up last night for you, extra information last night on our website. So please go in on www.supervisorandreabailey.com to subscribe to the Bailey Bugle. You will get our newsletter and updates as appropriately announced. And I think you will enjoy the Bailey Bugle. I want, Potomac, that you get engaged with us, that you send us your concerns, send us new ideas. Please engage with us so that we continue to maintain the tradition and the warm tradition, I should say, and the stability that the Potomac District has always exuded. So this ends our program for today. We're grateful for all that you do in the Potomac District. We're grateful for Courtney. I want to say hello and clap my hands for my wonderful staff who always keeps me in order. And Will Smith, who's my chief of staff, and Karen Smith, who's my district team manager. And I'm very grateful for them and grateful for all that you do. And for our wonderful subject matter expert in the background, Rob Hix, you're great. Thank you for making lemonade out of lemons. And that concludes our program for today. And Potomac, take care, be healthy, stay well.